Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to join today's ELT debate. So great to see all of you here today. I can see we've got a lot of people in this room from all over the world. So before we get started, you can just simply say hi through the chat box. Let us know where you're from and what brought you here so that we can know whether you're still online. All right. So, before we start, let me simply introduce myself. My name is Flora, and I'm from Macmillan Education. I'm the Business Development Manager. And also, I'm the host of today's debate session. Yes, wow, we can see so many participants saying hi all over the world. Yes. So, yes, we are also curious about what brought you here. So you can also share with us why would you like to participate in today's debate session? What would you like to hear about? As today we are discussing a very interesting topic, so whether you want to know, for example, what good English really means, or maybe how about accents, how accents affects communications and teaching in the classroom. So we would like to hear from you. Wow, okay. So let me share my screen and that we can be ready to start the session, right? So, all right, here we go. Okay, right. So let's see. Today's ELT topic, the debate topic, we are going to talk about uh, whether how can we assess the standard of English learning, especially for non-native English speakers. So this house believes that achieving a native speaker accent should be a goal of English language learner. And welcome again to everyone who just joined us. This is our ELT debate series because the last time we talked about how AI is changing language teaching. And today we are going to talk about a question is whose English is it anyway? Because English is spoken by many non-native speakers than native speakers. So questions about essence, identity, and clear communications are more important than ever, especially in the classroom across Asia. So now let's meet our debaters. On the red team, defending the motion, we have Dale Spafford, our regional professional development manager for Asia. So let's say hi to Dale. Hi, Dale.
Hello, Flora. How are you today? Hello,
Good.
everybody.
Great
Welcome
to
to the
have
Red
you here
Team.
again. Yes, and we are going to see your red t-shirt so that we remember you're on the red team.
Red Team.
Yes. And with Dell, we have Josh Donner, an ELT professional and regional teacher trainer at Macmillan Education. So let's say hi to Josh.
Hello, different
Hi,
shade of
Josh.
Josh.
red. Excited to be here for my first ELT debate. I hope to perform. A lot of pressure.
No pressure.
Welcome, Josh. Yes, this is your debut, right? Your first time to join our ELT debate. So we are all very excited to see. All right, and let's introduce the blue team. So on the blue team, opposing the motion, we have Nathan Waller, the lead trainer for Macmillan, based in Dubai. So let's say hi to Nathan. Hello,
Good afternoon,
Nathan.
everyone. A pleasure to be here, bringing it for the blue team, not red
Blue
team.
team.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Wow. Yes, you see now we have our dress code for each team. And last but not least, joining Nathan, we have Super, our senior teacher trainer and academic consultant from Shanghai. So let's take a look at Super's outfit. Are you prepared for your blue
Uh, are you
t-shirt,
going blue?
Super?
Item here, although I don't have a blue shirt, but
No
I am.
commitment. Remember that.
Mm.
No
You
commitment
should be
to the
running off to the
cause.
closet.
That's okay, Super. You still have time to find one from the closet. Okay, so thank you so much to our debaters of the day. So let's see. Let me briefly introduce our agenda. Right? Oh, sorry. Hold on. Oops. Here we go. Cause sorry, I'm looking for my slide. Here we go. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes. Uh-oh. Sorry, because my screen is frozen. So let me just briefly introduce the agenda of the day. Okay, so now as you have seen our amazing teams, I'm sure that you're just excited as I am. So before we begin the debate, I will quickly walk you through today's agenda. So first, we are going to vote the motion. So later we will launch a Zoom vote and you can cast your vote and see the result in real time. Next, our debaters will present their arguments. So we will take turns sharing their points and evidence to convince you to support their side. And each debater will have 5 minutes for their presentations. And after the first and second rounds, each debater will have 1 minute to give a final response. So this is their last chance to strengthen their positions and try to win your support. And we also have a Q&A session. So you make good use of the question box. So you can share your questions and assign these questions to any of the panelists of today's debate. And finally, we will launch a final vote to see whether they sway you, whether they change your mind. So we will launch a final vote to see whether you support a different position after hearing all these arguments. All right. So now let's start with our initial votes. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so moving. So this house believes that achieving a native speaker accent should be a goal of English language learners. So if you agree, please vote yes. If you disagree, please vote no. So now I'm going to launch the poll, and please share your ideas, whether you agree or disagree. And we will share the result with you, right? Oh, okay. All right, so I will give you 30 seconds.
Wow.
As you can see the result from the result, we can see that most participants disagree with the motion, right?
But not
Okay.
too like much
Around
difference. Yeah.
15 seconds. Okay. Okay, so let me end the poll and share the result with you. Right, share result. So as you can see, yes, most of our participants disagree with the motions. Maybe as many of you are also non-native speakers, so we believe that maybe this shouldn't be a goal. However, after the debates, we will launch the second vote to see if anyone changed their minds. Okay, so let me screenshot the result. Okay, so we have about 27% of teachers agree with this motions, and about 73% of teachers disagree with it. Okay, let me take a quick screenshot. All right, so let's move forward to our first round. Okay, so here we go. Now let's welcome our debaters for the first round. We will have Dale. Dale will be the first defending the motion for the red team, and Super will be opposing the motions for the blue team. So let's welcome Dale. Hi, Dale.
Hello.
All right. So Dale, are you ready?
Yeah, ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, let's go.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So today we're debating whether achieving a native speaker accent should be a goal or the goal for English learners, and I believe it should be. There are three reasons I'm going to try to offer you today as to why. In many situations, accent influences opportunity, confidence, and integration. And as I said, I'll give you three reasons why I believe it should be a goal. So my first point is about helping people get better jobs in Asia. So in Asia's global job market, accent really does matter. We've seen that employers often prefer candidates who sound British or American, particularly in countries like Hong Kong and Malaysia. Employees are feeling pressure to sound native and to move up in their careers. And why is this the case? Well, it's because a native-like accent is often linked to professionalism and competence, especially in roles that involve international clients or presentations. Now, is that fair? Well, probably not. In fact, yes, it's definitely not fair. Accent bias, however, is real, and we have to be real about it, and we need to fight it. So while we can work on changing attitudes, and we should do that, helping learners improve their accent will give them more options. It's just about reality on reality's terms. It's about choice. It sounding more like a native like speaker helps someone land a job or feel confident in an interview, then why not support that goal? Point number 2 is about actual language learning. Native-like pronunciation can boost listening and speaking confidence. Aiming, aspiring for native-like accents can often improve our overall pronunciation. Learners who work on native-like sounds and stress patterns become easier to understand, and they understand people better too. Studies have shown that better pronunciation leads to clearer speech, obviously, but it also, from that, increases confidence. Take my country that I'm based in at the moment, Thailand, as an example. There are lots of local accent features, dropping consonants, that can make communication harder internationally for people to understand. And training our students towards a native-like pronunciation helps fix these issues. Now, obviously, you don't need to be a perfect or have a perfect native accent to be understood. No, of course not. But aiming for it pushes students to improve faster. And for many, it's a confidence boost that can open doors. And finally, my third point is native-like accents can help people fit in when they are living or working abroad. I've worked with lots of students that are learning English to move to English-speaking countries to study further or maybe to take up jobs. And sounding closer to the local accent can make life easier. Again, is this fair? Probably not. In fact, definitely not. Many immigrants in the US and UK shouldn't be discriminated against because of their accent, but in reality, they are. And often, these immigrants will take accent training courses because it helps them feel accepted and reduces misunderstandings. People often feel they miss out on opportunities because of their accent. They feel like they're being judged because of their accent. And of course, no one should have to change their accent to belong. Identity matters. But many learners choose accent training because it gives them confidence and helps them succeed. It's about giving people options and not forcing them. So, should achieving a native speaker accent be a goal? Yes, but only for those who want it. For career growth, confidence, or integration, it can be a powerful choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale, for meeting the time. Wow. Okay. So thank you for the strong opening, Dale. I think it's really persuasive, especially when you said it's an option, right? It's not a must. Of course, it's for clarity, and also if we aim higher, it can drives our students to move forward to the ideal result. So thank you so much for sharing, Dale. And next, let's welcome Super to hear how she responds to Dale's argument. Hello, Super.
Hi.
Hi. Are you
Thank
ready?
Yes. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, so thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone, my dear opponents and fellow teachers across Asia. I'm going to start my debate with a story. Maybe after hearing my story, you will have a different opinion about what Dale has just said. Okay? So, This is a story of a boy from Hangzhou, China, who failed his university entrance exam twice. At age 12, this boy started riding his bicycle every morning to the West Lake in Hangzhou. Rain or shine, he'd wait outside hotels looking for foreign tourists. When he spotted one, he'd walk up, nervous but determined, and say, "Hello, can I show you around?" Free guide. He didn't do it for money, he did it for English. And for nearly 9 years, he practiced and practiced with strangers. His pronunciation was far from BBC perfect, and he always mixed up L with R, like most of Chinese students do. And his intonation was flat, and yes, he spoke with a very strong Chinese accent. But he never stopped talking. And that boy was Jake Ma. Years after, as an English teacher earning only $12 a month, he founded a small internet company in his apartment. And today we know this company as Alibaba. And when Jake Ma stood on the global stage talking to investors in Davos, negotiating with CEOs in Silicon Valley, he didn't sound like a native speaker. But the world listened. Why? Because what mattered wasn't how closely he sounded like a native speaker, but how powerfully he communicated his ideas. So here's the truth. We, as the English teachers in Asia or across the world, must confront that if we tell our students that good English means sounding like someone living in London or living in New York, we're not raising confident communicators. We're actually breeding self-doubt. And Jake Ma didn't succeed despite his accent. He succeeded with it because he knew English isn't about imitation, the accent. It's about the voice he makes to the world. So today, on behalf of millions of learners whose mother tongue shaped their English rhythm, from Bangkok to Jakarta, from maybe Ho Chi Minh City to Shanghai, we say, let's stop measuring success by accent. Let's start measuring by clarity, confidence, and the courage to speak. So that is the story I would like to share with you about a successful businessman, even an entrepreneur who succeeded with his accent. Yeah, he got his opportunities because he wanted to have the opportunities, because he has the courage to speak to foreigners, even when he was young, like at 12 years old. He seized the opportunities because he has the courage to reach out and to get to know the world, and also to try his best to communicate with the world. So that is not because of his accent, right? So as teachers, English teachers, we all suffer about having our students to speak and open their mouth to communicate in the classroom. Because in Asia, most of the students will be demotivated about speaking English because they're afraid of losing their face, because their accent is not perfect, because they don't sound like native speakers. We really need to remove that culture and that kind of mindset from our students' mind. I think what matters is the intelligibility of their accent. As long as they are easy to be understood, no matter of the accent or the pronunciation, it is okay for them to speak up and start communication. And even for people who are speaking English in Asia, they're not actually going to maybe live in London or in New York or in other maybe native speak countries. What they do is to communicate with other English speakers who are not native English speakers from any native speaking countries. So that is all about my part. Yeah, I believe accent is definitely not the goal for our language learners to achieve. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your strong point, Super, especially the very motivating and touching story actually based on a real case. Sounds like English learning is more than just learning a language, but it really reminds me of our our value, advancing achievement, right? It's an achievement. It's just more than language learning anymore. All right. So I noticed that some audience there you're raising your hands. If you want to ask some questions, feel free to share your question through the Q&A tab, and we will review your questions after the first and the second rounds. So you don't need to raise your hand, so that you can just share your questions through the chat box. Okay. So here we are moving forward to our next round. Next, let's invite our debaters. For the second round, we'll have Josh. So Josh will be defending the motion for the red team, and Nathan will be opposing it for the blue team. So after hearing such strong arguments from both sides, let's see, can they bring even more surprising insights? Let's find out. And here, let's welcome Josh. Hi, Josh.
Hello. Thank you.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Ready. Okay, let's go.
Okay. So to start off, this is the sort of debate where I really don't want to put my foot in my mouth. And I certainly don't want to imply anything like we should shed our non-native accents. But I hope that by the end of today, we can convince you about the aspirations of English learning being that native accent. And to that point, native accent, I think it was mentioned in the chat, even amongst native accents, there are many different accents, which is where I want to start. So, if we can imagine a CNN anchor in America or a BBC anchor in the UK, we can probably imagine how they're going to speak. They're going to be using kind of like I sound now, either generalized American English or received pronunciation in the UK. So I think to start, the important thing is to remember that having a standardized model for English pronunciation is necessary, particularly as Del mentioned, when we think about non-native speakers from different parts of the world. Their L1 language, their native language, might have different idiosyncrasies. For example, I'm based in Vietnam. Here, people often have trouble putting S sounds on the ends of words. Now, that's not obviously a dig at the speaking here. It's just a common, a product of the native language. And maybe non-native speakers here may understand that more easily, but when we broaden it out to the global context, if we're aiming for intelligibility, then having the standard general American or received pronunciation as a model is very important. So let's think about it as an aspirational model to heighten our intelligibility. The second point I want to make, kind of on that topic of intelligibility, is we should think about being understood or being able to be understood kind of on a sliding scale, right? Even with native speakers speaking in perfect native English, maybe if the sound is a bit muffled or I can't see their lips moving clearly, I would have to use the context of their other words to guess what they were saying. And that increases my cognitive load. I'm sure you've all been in this situation where you've been trying to understand what someone's saying, even in your own native language. And if there's some barrier to that, that increases your cognitive load. So we talked a little bit earlier about bias against non-native accents. Now, I hope that we can agree that we should all work to undo these biases. They're not fair. But I think when we think about bias, we should also, consider the extent to which a bias is unconscious. And if a native speaker, for example, or a different regional non-native speaker has to do more cognitive work to understand someone else, I think you could argue that there's a higher chance of them developing an unconscious bias against that non-native accent because it's raising that cognitive load. I'm down to about 90 seconds. So one more point I want to make in favor of having native English pronunciation as a goal is, as English spreads and becomes more of a global lingua franca, a language of global collaboration and instruction, we risk, if that's the right word, it becoming more fragmented. So while accents are inextricably tied to identity, and even with native speakers, I think you'll find the idea of code switching. We change our accents in order to suit the situation, in order to suit the company that we are in. Having that standard model as a prescriptive model, one that we can strive towards for maximum intelligibility with speakers around the world, doesn't take away from our ability to have many different Englishes. It just means that for standardization, we should have one that we can acknowledge, again, going back to understanding someone being a sliding scale, we can acknowledge is the more understandable, the standard one. So I think that encapsulates my starting points well. Thank you so much. My first debate.
Okay, thank
Online
you
debate.
so much for your point, Josh. Thank you for connecting it clearly, especially that you echo what Dale just shared about the clarity with standard, and also you back up your point with scientific research. I think that's really, really clear to help us to understand why it matters. So now let's welcome Nathan. Last but not least, let's see whether Nathan can share another persuading point to back up his idea. So, hello, Nathan.
Yeah,
Hi, Nathan. All right. Are you ready?
I am ready. Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Good. Okay. Good afternoon, fellow educators. I am the last to convince you to stay on and increase the 73%. So I'm going to start with a question, and the question is, why do our students learn English in the first place? I've worked in Asia in several different contexts, and I think about my students from when I was there, or my students from here in the Middle East. Is it to sound just like somebody from London or Los Angeles? Or is the real purpose of their learning to connect, to share ideas, and to succeed in the real world? They'll mention the real world. And I want to echo what Super was saying. Let's remember that in the real world, most of our non-native students are going to interact mostly with other non-native speakers. So I agree with this idea of kind of clarity, but I don't think a standardized accent is the same thing as the ability to pronounce and be clear and make your arguments understood. I'd also like to add to that if we think about the reality, there are lots of native speakers who are really not good teachers, but they actually take the jobs of really qualified, capable non-native teachers in a lot of contexts, especially in Asia. So actually, I think they take away a lot of those opportunities that Del was mentioning. So I think for me personally, communication is what matters most. And I'm not alone in this. Research backs this up. I'm also going to use research. If you look at things like the Journal of Applied Linguistics, there are many articles in there that show that what predicts successful communication is not a native-like accent, but this intelligibility that people were talking about. So while a learner can speak with a strong accent, they can still be perfectly clear. A good example was the one that Super gave. So that's one thing. And I think that if we're going to make this a goal, but it doesn't guarantee better understanding, then we're chasing a dream. Yeah. And I think for most adult learners, achieving a native-like accent is probably nearly impossible. A few might achieve it, but the amount of work, the amount of accent training that it demands is a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I think that time could be better spent on improving vocabulary, working on fluency, confidence, and those real-world skills that we work on today in our classrooms. And I think this is coming across, it sounds like a kind of perspective, but I think this is actually coming across now and being recognized in educational policy making. I know in China, for example, where several of our speakers and the host is based, If you look at educational policy in China, for example, national curriculum standards now emphasize intelligibility over native-like pronunciation. And that's also, you can see that in policy documents. The last thing I'm going to mention is about this idea of native. We've heard this a couple of times already. So, well, what is native? I mean, which accent should a learner choose? We've heard British, mine. We've heard American. You could have Australian. But there are actually 58 countries which have English as a recognized first language. So should they pick Singaporean, Maltese? Which one should take precedence over another? And does that create confusion? Does that create a barrier for students? Does it create this? I don't know. If I'm practicing British, but I meet someone from a different native speaking language, do I feel like I've picked the wrong one? Will I be less successful? I don't know where my own opportunities are going to come up in the future. So this is one. And we also heard about identity. I can't see the clock. How long? I got a minute left. Good. We heard about identity, but I don't think that we should ask our students to erase their own accent and that I'm part of their own identity. And there are plenty of role models. We heard about this one from China, but there are many others that are very popular. For example, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's been hugely successful, but never lost his accent. Antonio Banderas is another one who I think has been massively successful, but never given in to this idea that I need to speak like a native speaker. So you can be successful, retain your own identity, but also have clarity and confidence and be successful, not sounding native. So my final sentence is, our responsibility as teachers is clear. Even if students want it, we should set goals that empower learners, not discourage them. We should teach clarity, confidence, and communication, not mimicry. So stay with the blue team.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for wrapping up with your clear statements and especially the definition, how we redefine native speakers. Really, really refreshing. And now we know that actually there are about 58 countries that they use English as their official language, right? Wow. Okay. So here, finally, we are moving on the opportunities to respond to our debaters. We have the 1 minute for you to give final response. And still, I see some teachers are raising your hands. Maybe you have some questions. So feel free to share your questions in the Q&A tab, and we will review these questions by the end of the session. All right, so no worries. And here we will start with Dale. All right, so Dale, you have 1 minute to share your final argument. Are you ready?
Yeah, thank you, Super, for joining the red team. That was really kind of you to mention that Jack Ma spent most of his time talking to native speakers to improve his English. However, maybe just his skills of learning the language weren't just there at that stage, but it still never affected his ability to succeed, and that's awesome. But yeah, it's great that he did that and he aspired to that, and that's what we're talking about. We're not saying Nathan mentioned erase their own accent. Nobody is mentioning erasing accents. What we're saying is it's aspirational and it will improve the ability to choose what you want, not to erase anything or not to denigrate. And also, we never mentioned at any stage the argument about a quality of a teacher being linked to the teacher's accent either. Obviously, that's something that I would disagree with. It's a goal, it's a choice, it's an option. Aspire to a goal that is above you, and you might aim for the moon. And no, is it aim for the stars and you might hit the moon? That's what we're saying.
It's inspirational music to finish that quote.
Thank you, Dale, for sharing this. And I'm really surprised that you spot what Super just shared about learning, practicing English from native speaker. Okay, so here you go, Super. It's your turn to respond. All right. So, Super, are you ready?
Yes. So, just a quick response to Dale's attack. So, although Jack Ma talked to native speakers for 9 years nonstop, he still couldn't achieve his native accent, perfect pronunciation. But that didn't stop him from speaking. And I also want to point out that I think Dale mentioned in high stake contexts like job interviews or international exams. A native accent can give the learner an advantage, but the fact is, high-stake exams like TOEFL and IELTS, their official rubrics of speaking explicitly state that accents are not penalized as long as the speech is intelligible. And also, global companies like Google, Alibaba operate in multilingual English environments. So, like Indian accent, Chinese accent are all norms for these companies. So, it's totally okay to have an accent, but to communicate. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Super. Especially you mentioned that the inclusivity, the importance of inclusivity, right? We should also consider that. Okay, so next we'll have Josh. So Josh, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. So yeah, a couple things to start with. One thing. So I'm Canadian, and I, in this very talk, have toned down my Canadianisms. Now, when I speak to Americans, I tone down my Canadianisms as well. Is that because I'm ashamed of being Canadian? No, it's because instinctually, humans try to, become part of the group that they're with. So having the native, it's not to say if you don't achieve the native, maybe even that's the wrong word, if you don't have a native sounding accent, your English is less. I think it's beautiful that there are so many Englishes around the world, but how do we keep them mutually intelligible? We need some standard that undergirds that. Now, whether we have one or two or three, whether you are already a native speaker or whether you are an English learner, having that having that model is necessary.
Okay, thank you, Josh. A lot of audience are asking about whether you switch your team. So
What? No.
Awesome.
nah. So
I
because
was
all of your
misinterpreted.
yeah, very strong statements, right? Keep reinforcing our understanding of whether it's important or not to stick to this so-called native accents. So here, last but not least, we have Nathan for the final response. So Nathan, are you ready?
I am ready, yes.
Okay, let's
I,
go.
just 1 minute. I'm going to try and pick out some of Dell's points. Josh, it's your first debate. I'm not going to come in on you. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Dell mentioned a couple of things. Dell mentioned that for some students, their ambition is to go to other countries and live, work, or study in native speaking contexts. And he thinks that accent will help them to do this. And I'm going to argue that actually, I don't think that is true. Even for native speakers, for example, if I was now to go to Glasgow to study PhD, I would meet many Glaswegians that I just simply wouldn't understand. So even having a native accent would not help me integrate into a place like Glasgow. It would be more appropriate to be able to practice my clarity of speech and also integrate into the culture and learn about Glaswegians and who they are.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your final thought, Nathan. So yes, it's about understanding whether native speaker, whether our native accent can help us to understand new words and new knowledge in a faster way. This is a question, right? So before we move on to our final vote, I can see we have so many questions. So obviously this is a very interesting topic because teachers has a lot of questions that they would like to hear from our debaters. So let me quickly review some of them and I will assign these questions to like one of you, okay? So first we have a question about the differences between accent and pronunciation. So some teachers are confused with this too. As native speakers, can you please clarify this too? So here we need a native speaker to help answer this question. Maybe Dale, would you like to answer this question?
Sure. I can have a go. So it was from Cal, right? Yeah. So I would say that accent is the way that a group of people sound. It could be related to stress, intonation. Nathan mentioned Glaswegian English. Glaswegian English is an accent. It can be very different. And then it's particularly in the UK, it can change from like village to village. It really is amazing. And pronunciation is more to do with how accurately you would speak and how you formulate words using your mouth, using the tools that you have. That would be my my sort of definitions of, well, not definitions, distinctions between the two. So accent is how you sound, pronunciation is the tools of sounding like that.
Right. Thank you for the answer, Dale. Hope this is clear. And second, we have another interesting questions about grammar and communication.
I'm glad I didn't get this one.
Yes. So we have another questions that is it possible to teach explicit, decontextualized grammar rules without sacrificing the student's motivation and fluency? At what proficiency level does from accuracy become more important than communication flow? So I think it's more about fluency, right? And the flow. So maybe Super, would you like to answer this question?
Yes. So, from my experience, so I shouldn't answer this question, Nathan. So there are explicit grammar teaching and inexplicit grammar teaching, and we can take advantages of both these approaches. And I think the ultimate goal is definitely to communicate the language using the right grammar, right? So we need to provide the context for students to understand the grammar. So contexts are very important, and that makes the grammar learning make sense in that kind of contexts. But after understanding the meaning, explicit explanation of the grammar should follow as another support for the students to understand what kind of grammar structures should be there to make sense of this meaning and how it works in different contexts. So that is my opinion. Yeah, a balanced approach. Fluency, accuracy, yeah, take together and using different activities to practice fluency and accuracy together.
Wow, thank you so much for answering this question, Super, because actually in China, the new curriculum is also promoting, encouraging the contextualized grammar learning, right?
Yes.
But it's also very important to, as you said, to let them understand the rules in the context. And next, we have a question about native accent. It's about inclusivity, so it's also an interesting question. Do you think learning native accent doesn't provide inclusivity to the language, or should we preserve the standard English accent? So maybe we can have Nathan for this, because next question is for red team. So Nathan, would you like to share your thoughts on this?
Sorry, I was writing in the chat box. Can you just repeat the question?
No problem. So we are talking about inclusivity. So a teacher asked about whether learning native accents doesn't provide inclusivity to the language, or should we preserve the standard English accent?
I think for me the accent's not really related to inclusivity. Inclusivity is more about personal, like the sense of belonging, how we integrate. I don't think the accent really matters. I think in terms of how you speak and how you sound, I think it's your ability to connect with people, your ability to feel things like empathy, your ability to share, practice those soft skills, and relate to other people. And I think you can do that in any language, in any way. I think it's how you use the language rather than how the language comes out of your mouth sounding, for me.
That's a very good conclusion. Thank you, Nathan, for answering this clearly. And next, we have a question especially for red team. So here, if having an accent is an objective, do you think it will create even more pressures for English learners?
Yeah.
So
this one.
Who would like to answer this question? Josh?
I can do it, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's an important question to ask because we don't want to overburden our learners with pressure. And I think to the point people were to the chat as well, more pressure for teachers. To the point people were saying earlier, like if you're an adult learner, likely you're never going to perfectly mimic a native accent. So I think it's important for all of us to have, many native speakers, I think was mentioned in the chat, also don't use proper grammar or don't like say all of the words sometimes, but it's important for them to have that mental, it's like Plato, we need the form beneath the thing. It's important for people to have that mental understanding of what would be perfect grammar or what would be proper, correct grammar. Not only if they have to like write an essay or a formal letter, but just to like we've said, like aspire to. So yes, I think like I don't mean to say that we should be telling students that they should always be trying to emulate the accent, but having like it as a something in their toolkit for linguistic empowerment that they can use more of or have as that sort of model that undergirds their English. So I hope to not put pressure on students, but it's a difficult balance to walk, of course.
Okay, thank you so much for answering this question. Yeah, it's tough too. So I noticed that some participants mentioned that it's more pressure for teachers, right? So for both sides, we all want to aim higher. So since that there are so many questions, as this is a very interesting topic, we may not have enough time to go through all of them. But of course, we will save these questions and we may address them in our future context. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and questions on this. So now we are moving forward to our final vote to see whether your mind have been changed after this strong debate. So let me launch, let me launch the second vote. And at the meanwhile, our debaters, you can still, yes, in blue. You can share your final thoughts if you have any. Okay, so let me launch the vote. Let's see, launch. Oops. Okay, so here we go.
Go blue.
All right.
Go blue. Go blue.
So yes, so you have around 30 seconds to vote whether you still stick to your agreement or maybe you disagree with it.
Is that not vote one you've got up there?
Yeah, but actually this is the same. The questions
vote.
are the same. And I saved the first result.
Okay.
Yeah. So earlier, let me check the result that we have. Let me see.
7,
Are there more participants now though?
Yeah. So yes, the data might change because we have more participant joining. So at the beginning of the session, we have around 27% of participants agree with the motion, with 73% of participants disagree with it. Wow, so it seems that okay. It seems that we have more participants disagree with these motions, right? Around 15%. Okay, so let me share the result with you. Okay, and the poll. So here we go. We have around 60% of you agree with the motion, with 84% of you disagree with it, right?
Ooh.
Wow.
Well, 16%.
Team Blue, congratulations.
This trial, the data changed.
Yes, however, because we have more participants joining us, so maybe this data may be changed because of this. However, it's still a very still a very like valuable experience for us to discuss and listen to different insights and ideas, and also have some refreshing thoughts about whether how should we define good English, right? So I hope that this is the most valuable takeaway that we can have. So before we end the session, do you have any final thought that to share, debaters? So we still have a little time for you to share. So Dale?
Yeah, just before we go, there I can see the vote now. Yeah, congratulations, blue team. Very, very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think probably could have predicted that. It's a really tough thing. We should always state this, even when we were doing the debate on AI where we were debating that teachers would lose their jobs. Obviously, it's very difficult to debate these things, and the views may not be what we actually agree with, but it's a really fantastic task to actually think about it in more detail and have a deeper understanding of it. So while I would probably caveat it with the fact that I would have voted for the blue team as well, it was still great for me to do the research on the other side. The other thing I want to say is thank you all so much for your support in 2025. Really appreciate everything that you bring to our webinars, and we hope that we'll see you in 2026 as well. Thank you so much, and thank you to the blue team and to Josh for today's debate, and as always, Flora for being a perfect host, and
Thank
Dolores and Palin in the background who are running everything as well.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing your thought. And for red team, I noticed that you always pick up the most difficult position. So it's really good to hear from your thoughts and have some refreshing insights on this. So please stay tuned to our Facebook and WeChat. So we will share some really interesting posts and learning materials, resources on this. So please feel free to follow and stay tuned because we have a lot of upcoming sessions that follows. So welcome to join this big community. All right. So thank you everyone for joining today. A big thank you to Dil, Super, Josh, your first time, and Nathan for their thoughtful and inspiring argument and perspective. So whether your view changed or stayed the same, I hope the session gave you something meaningful to think about. So we appreciate your energy and your questions. See you next time. See you our next ELT debate series. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you for the
Thank
questions.
you.
Bye.
Bye.